and recording.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first episode of Five Flavors with Chef Phil. We put this video together for you so that we can provide to our community some levity and some really great cooking. So let me first introduce everyone. We have Ashley, who is a certified nutritional coach and educator. Next is Chef Phil, who is a fantastic chef and also a educator, and Alicia Kim, my sister, who is a instructional coach for teachers specializing in mathematics. And I'm Leah Kim, your host, acupuncturist and herbalist. Today we're going to talk about the element of metal and its associated flavor, pungent. Pungent is a little hard to describe. Some people liken it to spicy or acrid, but its quality is dispersing and circulating. Its energy is to move out accumulations. And so it's related to the lung and the large intestine. So when we have something that's pungent or acrid, we sometimes will sweat, right? If we have something spicy, or it'll just kind of wake us up and break us free from that moment. And that is the quality of the metal element. So we are going to introduce our favorite pungent flavor, kimchi. Take it away, Chef Phil.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my kitchen here in New York. We're going to do a little bit of a kimchi, but not a traditional kimchi. What I chose to do is what I consider a fast kimchi. You'll be able to consume it within about 7 days. So we're going to do something with Napa cabbage, which is a Chinese style cabbage. And just to show you my beautiful basket here, I had friends actually, and I want to thank Meredith, Sam, and Michael. They stopped by an Asian market and picked up some vegetables, unbeknownst to them that I was going to be doing this presentation today. So I have kimchi's cousin. We have some bok choy here. I have some chai flowers and a few other vegetables. In my kimchi today, I'm going to show you that I put a few other ingredients in it where you have a recipe that we'll be sending out to you. Red pepper, red bell pepper, some daikon, which is a Japanese style radish, carrot, some scallions or green onions, and of course your Napa cabbage, which is a Chinese cabbage. It's kind of grown like celery, which has very firm stems beneath, and then nice green leafy. So almost like the lettuce family, grows like a romaine lettuce as well. So just to let you know what we normally do is I'm going to show you, we split the kimchi right down the center, and I'm going to actually cut it into quarters. And that's what I did to this one, just to show you. To make a fast kimchi, normally you'll soak this in salted water, holding on with the root end of it. I separated all my leaves. And just to make things quicker, because we're filming this, I want to show you what I did.
So Napa cabbage is actually a vegetable associated with the metal element, because it comes into harvest around autumn, which is the season of the metal, and it's white, which is the color of metal.
Yeah, and it's actually very, very pungent. It just soaking this in the salt water, you could actually smell the aromas and the odor that comes out of it. And some people describe pungent as an off smell, and it's not very pleasant at times. But other people, it reminds you of your childhood and what you've grown up with. So different smells from different types of food remind us of different things. Some people like it, some people don't. But I really like kimchi. I like eating it with something that's a fatty substance, like a liver, because that pungent flavor, especially if it's a little spicy, kind of sets off the fattiness of the liver, and it really, really blends well together. It's a good accompaniment. So anyway, what I did was I soaked these in salted water, and I normally do about 3/4 of a cup of salt to about 7 cups of water. First, I let them soak for about 15, 20 minutes, and then I take them out and I salt each leaf by the white part with additional salt. So overall, I use about 1.5 cups of salt, and that's quite a lot of salt.
Mhm.
But you want these to soak in this water for about a good 3 hours or until they're tender. You can actually see I can bend the bottom part of this leaf, okay, without it breaking because it's still crisp, but yet it's pliable for the process that I'm going to use. So as those are soaking, I'm just going to set that aside.
So Alicia, what's your memory of kimchi in our household?
Sorry. I remember mom making it and digging holes in the backyard and burying it deep so that it ferments.
Mhm.
And definitely can't go without kimchi when eating a Korean meal.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the reason it was buried in the backyard was that was traditionally the way that you could keep the food fresh. It was buried deep in the frozen earth. So it was a cooling method. It was a natural refrigeration. Ashley, what do you understand about kimchi from a nutritional standpoint?
So going on what Phil said about eating it with fatty foods and liver, kimchi and these kind of bitter and pungent foods help aid digestion. They support liver detoxification. They help get your digestive juices going. So it's really designed to eat as a condiment with these foods to help you break down things like meat and fats and those kind of more dense foods. They work together once you ingest them to help with digestion and then pulling out the nutrients of the other foods you're eating with it. So that's one of the benefits.
That's true, which is why a lot of times pungent flavors are side condiments, right? Sauces, pickles, brines. They all help with breaking down and dispersing accumulations, right? So kimchi also being such a fibrous food or a vegetable, it does help with digestion. We also have the probiotics that come in any kind of fermentation process. We love probiotics, so fermented foods. So Alicia, did you know that when you're making kimchi, that the bacteria that lives inside of you in your home is actually being imparted into the kimchi and the fermentation process? So kimchi is a little microcosm of your macro world. There's a little bit of you in that kimchi.
So in other words, if you commit a crime and your fingerprints are not on file, okay, your DNA, they can come and check your kimchi and they'll find you in a minute. So
that would be a great episode of like Law and Order.
I know.
Murder
Caught by kimchi.
Caught by kimchi. So, you know, that's something which is one of the major benefits of kimchi, right? One fun fact, people think that Koreans have been eating kimchi for like thousands of years, and it isn't true. There had been forms of a pickle or a kimchi prior to the 17th century, but it really wasn't until about the 18th century, 17th, 18th century, I can't be quite sure now, where the Portuguese in the trade route introduced hot peppers, which was not native to Korea. And they found that the hot peppers actually helped with the fermenting and preserving aspect. And so therefore you could use less salt. So that's actually how we got red kimchi. What Alicia and I know of what we call like white kimchis, that's actually more traditional to the kimchi lineage that goes further back than red kimchi. Red kimchi also has not only benefits in terms of the probiotics, but the mixture of spices, peppers, garlic, onions, sometimes salted fish or fish sauce. They're all actually medicinal qualities that actually help sort of create circulation. Hot pepper, we know that it's great because it has capsaicin in it, which are wonderful for the joints. And
basically what gives you your heat.
Exactly.
What you're also looking at also, not only the medicinal side, but for years people have been doing this because as the farmers harvest their crops, or people who raised animals, you know, slaughtered their animals. These were ways of preserving them because there wasn't great refrigeration back then.
Exactly.
So a lot of these curing processes, whatever culture you're in, every culture had to preserve their crops and their meats in order to feed their families. And this was a way of doing that so that your crops wouldn't go to waste, because there was only so much that you can use and so much that you could sell in order to support your families. So this is just another way of preserving, you know, your fruit and vegetables and your meats. So just a little bit more really quick. This is going to be the spices and the other aromatics that are going to be in the kimchi. What I decided to do was, traditionally, once your leaves were done, you would stuff each leaf in between with all these seasonings. I actually decided to actually roll each individual leaf, so that therefore when it is ready to eat, you can have a nice little condiment with your meats or your fish or whatever you might be eating the kimchi with. So these are all julienne vegetables. I explained in my recipe that julienne is a classical cut. It's 1/8 by 1/8 of an inch by 2 inches long. And it's something that I teach my kids in Culinary 1. And I'm just gonna put these all in a bowl. And I have some fresh ginger here and some garlic. If you have one of these at home, it's really easy, so you don't have to practice your knife skills. You can just squeeze your garlic, and it's a garlic press.
Garlic and ginger is also within the family of pungent in the metal element. Alicia, I think you need one of those garlic presses.
I think I have one. I just haven't used it yet.
As far as the ginger, I like just to chop it up so it spreads out a little bit throughout the kimchi. You can put a few pieces in whole, you'll get the flavor as well. I just think this, when you start to agitate the ginger, it'll bring out more of the natural oils and the flavors that are in there.
Ashley, can you speak a little bit about ginger?
Yeah, so onions and ginger and all these other foods that we add in, and we actually find in so many different cultures, which is really interesting. One of the big things that I love about them is they're very good for the immune system. They're antimicrobial, antibacterial. And one of the reasons that kimchi can be living in your backyard, and you think, how can that be possible and it be healthy, is it's actually killing off bad bacteria and helping the good bacteria grow. So it supports that. And it's good for our immune system. So I know there's a lot of tradition of drinking, like right now I'm drinking ginger tea, helping to boost the immune system. It's great during flu season. Onions and garlic are also great for fighting off the immune system. I have a friend who actually, his mom was an acupuncturist, and she tells stories of having to sleep with garlic in her socks because it's supposed to help pull out and help the immune system. And she laughs about it, but she's like, it totally works. So for years, it's been used, and you'll find that all across the world, especially garlic, ginger is used in so many different cultures, and it's because that immune system boosting and that health benefit that comes in, but also the flavors and the way it really just brings everything together. I know for me personally, the smell of garlic cooking in the house is like one of my favorite smells, you know, that like fresh garlic starting to cook and things like that. But the benefits for the immune system are really what they're most known for.
And the beauty of ginger, garlic, things that are pungent, as Chef Phil described, is its aromatic quality. And it's those aromatics that actually not only stimulate our senses to start the digestive juices, but it's those aromatics that also open up our pores.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And don't forget, when you walk into a restaurant or you just happen to be cooking at home, before you even see anything, it's the aromas that kind of whet your appetite. And then obviously you get the visual when you're looking at it. And I always say people eat with their eyes first, but I think people eat with their senses as far as the smell first, because that's what's more intoxicating, and that kind of wakens up your brain and the senses of what's going on.
Yep. And
so
also it starts
really
your
important.
digestive system. So I remember learning in nutrition school, we said that digestion starts in the nose. So the smell, in that smell of those foods actually gets your hydrochloric acid in your stomach digestive juices starting to flow. And so there's a physical as well as mental component of starting digestion, and the whole process starts with that smell. And the smell tells you what you're going to be expecting to eat and what it's going to taste like, because taste really comes from smell. The two work together in order for you to understand what you're eating.
Yeah. So moving on with the kimchi, I have all these nice vegetables julienned inside with the ginger and the garlic. I'm going to add a little salt, not much, because don't forget we have a lot of salt in the kimchi. But you want the salt also to wake up these vegetables. You want to be able to draw, and it also draws the liquid out of them as well. Okay, and that's exactly salt is a curing agent. So exactly what it's doing to the kimchi, it's curing it. It's actually cooking the kimchi while it's sitting in that solution right now. So a little salt in there. I throw a little fish sauce, about a teaspoon of fish sauce. Okay.
Yet
Now this is
another
also
pungent
this
smell.
exactly. This is also a fermented sauce that's made from salt and anchovies. You know, if just I love the smell of it. To be honest, you have to also be careful how much you use, though, because you know we are making something that you want to blend nice flavors together. You don't want one to overpower the other. I also throw in a couple of teaspoons of mirin, which is a sweet rice wine. This is going to help also quickly marinate and ferment these flavors together. And I like spicy. I use sambal. I do 2 tablespoons of sambal.
And what is sambal?
Sambal is a chili paste. Okay, it's like a hot sauce. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's a chili paste. There's garlic. I believe there's dried shrimp in here too, if I'm not mistaken. It might not in this one, but it's mostly salt, chilies. There's some what else? Ingredients.
Alicia, do you think you could use cooking as a way to create a instructional program for teachers to engage their students in math? I mean, we're talking about measures and proportions, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that recipes and teaching children how to cook could also be a great way of teaching math?
Yeah, it's a part of that application piece, and be able to make those conversions and equate, you know, the fraction units to, you know, to cooking. So I think definitely there's a benefit, and that real world application is really important.
It's so funny because before we even got on, Alicia and I were speaking about math and how it applies to so many things in our life and the different ways that they're teaching it now. But yeah, math is so important in the culinary industry, especially when you're doing conversions. Many of your recipes, especially baking, yeah, teachers do rock. There's a I think a better appreciation of what we're going through right now for teachers. They should get a lot more credit than they normally do, and probably
And also
probably a raise too.
And I remember our home ec classes, and I really love that. And I don't think they teach that as much anymore. But I have heard of some schools, and I remember seeing a documentary about some high schools offering culinary class as an option for classes. And it really helps students who weren't thinking about going to college. They wanted to do something with their hands. They wanted to be more hands-on, and it allowed them to start a career and start to learn the basics of culinary arts in high school, which I thought was just brilliant, because not only are you learning a skill and a job that you can do, but also cooking and feeding yourself is one of the most basic things we have to do that some of us have lost touch with. We're doing so much fast food that learning just what a vegetable is and how to cut it and how to cook it and how different preparations change the flavor and the taste is something to me that is just really fun to play with, and introducing that to young kids would be great.
Especially younger kids today, because there's so much unhealthy eating in the world. And they really need to know what's good for them. I mean, we all like a little junk food once in a while, but it's important to eat the right way to preserve our life, just like we preserve our fruits and vegetables. So anyway, real quick, rinsed off the Napa cabbage under cool running water. Again, see, they're nice and pliable. So you're rinsing off some of the salt, and you're squeezing it a little bit dry so that you can get the excess water out. And then notice whenever I'm working on a cutting board and you want to keep it clean, whether I'm butchering meat or fish, I put a little piece of plastic down so that I can lay down my ingredients without dirtying my cutting board, and it's an easy cleanup.
So Alicia, did you know the quick trick of getting liquid out of Napa cabbage to make kimchi? You were probably too young. We used to freeze it.
Yeah.
And then after it was frozen, we defrost it and then be able to squeeze out all the fluid, which made it easier for us to use less salt.
Yeah, they do that. There's also a process when you're doing stuffed cabbage as well. Normally you'll take the core out and you'll blanch the cabbage, which is a quick boil in salted water, and then remove it and chill it so that you can roll your meat and rice inside the stuffed cabbage. But if you put it in the freezer, what happens is the molecules freeze, and then as they defrost, they sort of cooked your cabbage. So it's easy, it becomes more pliable. And again, you don't, one step shorter than boiling it in water. So I laid down my Napa cabbage. Normally I'll have this sit for about an hour to start to really absorb the flavors in here, but I can tell you it smells really good. And then what I do is I just take some and I put it in my Napa. And don't be bashful, you want to use it.
The colors look beautiful, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's something when you're preparing food as well, you really need to be, you have to be visual, because let's face it, people don't want to eat ugly food.
It's true.
Well, also traditionally, it's at this point where we could use this very fresh style of kimchi, where we would actually put a piece of pork belly right in there, roll it up, and then just immediately eat it.
And go a step further, get a nice little steam bun. Oh my God! And
yes, a little carb there too, yeah. Right?
So what I do is I roll these up. I lay my jar down, and I stuff these in the jar. And you want to stuff them in relatively tight. And if they fall apart a little, that's okay. And just so that the jar looks pretty, I might throw a little bit more of this in there like that, you know, and fill the holes. And again, just...
Alicia, do you think this is something that you think you could do? I know you're not the best cook in our family, but we're encouraging you to become one.
No.
Well, fermentation, I think, is great for new cooks because there's a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah,
you know, a lot of it is just about playing with there. It's not about exacts. You can go a little spicier, a little less spicy. And it's kind of fun to play with, even as a science experiment. When I first really got into fermenting while in California and working with some really amazing people out there who do great fermentation work, it was just so fun to see it all happen. Like, it's really amazing to see something go from these fresh vegetables and you know what they taste like, and then watch the fermentation process and see it come out the other end. There's something just fun about it.
Maybe you can get the boys to try to make it.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be a challenge.
They're old enough. We were that age.
Yeah.
Maybe it can be a homework assignment. It could be a show and tell.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
So what I'm doing here is I'm just making a little salted liquid with some rice flour. And that's going to kind of be a little thickening agent, like a slurry. And that's going to help really adhere to the cabbage, and the rice is also going to help ferment it, because there's natural, I mean, if you want to get sick on anything, leave your rice out for hours and hours and hours and just watch the bacteria grow on it. So it's really, really important to be careful when you're doing this also. But as you're pressing this down, you can see all those nice natural juices that are coming in this jar. And what I do is I just, I'll pour this liquid. Once this liquid is done, we'll cool it down. The slurry is pretty much together. We add a little cold water to cool it down. And
so, Alicia, I don't think you're familiar with. So kimchi is fermented in two different methods. There is more sort of a vegetarian version with the rice slurry. And then there is the fermentation process used with the way that we remember growing up, which is with fish sauces, or 새우젓, which is fermented shrimp. So this is, even though there's a little fish sauce in this is a more of a vegetarian version, a vegan version of kimchi.
And don't forget, these are things that have been done for years, but you can make it your own. Okay, do it with the flavors that you really enjoy. And what your family's going to enjoy. And this is what I did for me, because I know, I'm going to kind of like mix the cultures, and 7 days from now, I'm going to sit down with some mortadella and some liver and stuff, and I'm going to pull out some kimchi and a nice loaf of rustic bread that I'm going to bake, and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to enjoy, being around the world in my own kitchen. So it's just important to do what you like. I let this sit out overnight, okay, and then I'll wake up the next morning and I'll pop it in the refrigerator. And just to show you what I did with the kimchi earlier, that's basically the one I made a few days ago. I put a little date on top. It says 5/8/2020. So this will be ready on the 8th. And I'll be able to open this up and really, really enjoy it. And there's so many other things you can do with this. I mean, you could, make if you don't like the full pungent salt, there's no reason why you can't do a little reduction of balsamic or something and just drizzle it over the top and put a little sweetness to it. There's so many things you can do in the culinary world. There's so many flavors that you can really blend and make it your own. I enjoy pickles. I'm definitely a pickled person. I love making my own sauerkraut. Something like this, you can do a version by julienning all of the Napa cabbage and sort of making your kimchi almost like in a sauerkraut form. Okay?
Right. Well, the other way that you can do this, which is also a traditional method, is again to sweeten it, to balance out the pungent. We use actually pears.
Yes, or apples. Yeah,
remember that Asian pear, right?
Yeah.
And pears too are actually a fruit that's associated with the metal element. Pears are supposed to be really great for the lungs, and also pears are generally harvested around the same time as Napa, which is towards the autumn. Right. So this is where we start to see how nature's abundance starts to add to the flavor profiles and what is available to us to carry us through the winter months. So that might be something fun for you to try, Chef Phil, is to try it with some Asian pears.
Absolutely. I did, when I was researching it, I did see a few different recipes. This particular recipe that I saw did have Asian pear in it. I chose not to because I wanted it more savory and that more of that pungent flavor. But yeah, like you say, and also, the natural sugars in that pear it's going to ferment.
And you got a nice sweetness there with the red pepper, and red peppers are really high in vitamin C, which is also great for the immune system, among other things. But surprisingly, we think of citrus fruit for vitamin C, but red pepper are one of the highest sources of vitamin C of any fruit or vegetable. So it's a great thing to add in there. And there's like a little natural sweetness in that pepper.
Got to get the boys to eat some bell peppers, Alicia.
Speaking of vitamin C, if also for green vegetables, when you're cooking green vegetables or making like pestos or anything like that, a little vitamin C inside, will keep them really bright and beautiful.
Yeah, the nutrients are really amazing to be cofactors for each other, and they support each other. So when we look back at these recipes that have been around for a long time, even though they didn't have the nutritional science that we have today, they knew how everything worked together in a more traditional way. And now that we're kind of researching it in a scientific perspective, we're seeing why these elements go together and why these foods are going together and working well together. And it just really helps bring everything to a nutritional benefit, but also the taste. They go hand in hand. It's almost like things tasting good tell us what's good for us.
So Alicia, what did you think of our episode?
Oh, I think it's great. Some of my takeaways are to add a little bit more ginger in my diet. I love garlic, so I mean, I try to add that to everything. But no, this was, I think sometimes, the process of the kimchi making, watching my mother do it, just kind of turned me off to doing it. But just watching you, Chef Phil, do it so quickly and easily, I guess has inspired me to try it myself. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And even though I don't think your sister's giving you enough credit for cooking, okay, you've raised 2 young men in the family, and I'm sure they're quite healthy eating, but also cooking's easy. If you, my only suggestion when you're looking at a recipe, read it twice. Just make sure you understand it. It's so important to understand it. I do it myself, even when I'm following someone else's recipe. But I like cooking from the hip as well. It's a great time just opening up your refrigerator and seeing what you have in it and create something. You know, it's a lot of fun. And listen, it's what brings everyone in this world together. Okay, open up a nice bottle of wine, sit down, have some great conversation. Stay away from politics and religion. We don't want to upset everyone. But it's a great way to spend time with friends and family.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts, Ashley?
I just know that I need to start fermenting more. I've been a little lazy lately, and so this is really encouraging. And I have made my own sauerkraut and some beet kvass and other things, but kimchi is something I haven't tried yet. And I love the combination of the foods that you used. The daikon, which is really traditional and has like a great like crunchy flavor, mixed in with the red bell pepper. I don't think I ever would have put those two together in my own ideas. So that's really inspiring to give it a try. And the way you individually wrapped it is something that's great because, you know, I live alone, and when I make things, it's hard to make big batches and try to get through it and work well. So to be able to just take out a little bit at a time, I think that's really great for people to know that they can kind of self-serve themselves with a serving size. And the kimchi is great because once it's, you know, fermented and good to go, it lasts, you know, for a long time. So you can leave it in the fridge and take it out whenever you need it.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining us on 5 Flavors with Chef Phil. And we look forward to seeing you for the next episode where we'll be talking about the taste of salt. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Enjoy the day.
Thank you.